Hello and welcome to the Unusual Stories podcast. My name is Wojciech Salski, I'll be your host for today. And before we begin, may I remind you, if you'd like to support this podcast in any way, the best way is probably to click the subscribe button or follow button and share it with a friend or a colleague. And if you want to support it in another way, maybe by sending me an email, suggesting a book to review, and maybe supporting me financially, there is a donation option on the website, then please do follow the link below. All the support and anything and everything that you guys offer me for this audible time I spend with you is greatly appreciated. And without you, I wouldn't be here, right? I mean, I could do vlogs for myself and for my children going forward, but I think for the time being, it is safe to say that there are days, certainly, that knowing that you are here or there, everywhere, listening, really does pick me up. And you know, it's crazy and amazing. I did mention to you before. By now, I've seen that we have listeners from, I think, something like 107 countries, which is absurd, I think, in many ways, but it's also beautiful. I mean, it's absurdly beautiful or beautifully absurd. And, you know, it's something worth doing this for. So thank you so much for that. You know, it's a great pleasure and a privilege to be doing this still. So, funny story, really. This is an episode that you probably did not expect, as I assume you might have remembered from last week, or the week before actually, that I was gonna finish the season and prepare for you an episode which talks about the rebranding journey I've been on for the past couple of weeks now, almost months. The thing is, though, we're still going, so I will have a few words to say about it, but I've decided, you know, just to keep the ball rolling, I have some topics that I wanted to share with you, some things that popped up over the previous weeks and months also, and with the Christmas sort of coming up quite shortly, I thought that's also quite a relevant topic to discuss. So I have two major topics today, and then after that I will tell you sort of what the plan is for the coming weeks and months. I'll mention the few books that I'm, you know, preparing to discuss with you in this sort of controversial, not so controversial, but let us say controversial topics series. And also I'll, as per usual, offer you a little invitation for the week and the weeks to come. But for the most part as well, I was thinking, you know, why would I talk about this topic in particular? Because I'll talk in a moment about a topic which is very personal, and in many ways it was sparked by a conversation I had with my brother just the previous weekend. And I thought, well, the least of the benefit for it is that I will be able to remind myself of this thinking that I've done and that this topic in general. But also, I'm hoping that maybe by sharing it with you, my dear listener, I will allow you to avoid the mistakes, or at least not make the same mistakes as I did, because we both know that you know, avoiding mistakes altogether in life is quite impossible, really. But yeah, it's a topic close to my heart. It's definitely something that I've been thinking about for a long time now, and discussing it with my younger brother recently, as we had a very wholesome, wonderful time together. And sort of, you know, there was a moment when we were truly just immersed in a conversation that was pure bonding, I would say. At least for me it was, and I assume it was a very similar feeling for him. I thought this might be something worth your while. So here it is. Let's see what you think of that. So my first topic for you today is basically the idea of the time you have with your loved ones. And we've had on the podcast before a few episodes that sort of touched on it. I will link below the one episode in particular that was truly focused on spending your time with your loved ones, your friends, family, and sort of really close allies, colleagues. But I think, especially with the Christmas time coming up, with a chance, hopefully, for all of you to reconnect with your loved ones and maybe take a step back from your daily, toils and tribulations of life. I think it's a topic that we could dive deeper into. So, the one thing that always keeps me going and also sometimes doesn't allow me to sleep at night is this idea that we've discussed recently, that time is all we have, right? It's the most scarce resource any human has. For that matter, anything, probably even the universe, has a certain limit on time. And of course, we can consider whether or not time is existent, and that's for the previous episode for you to check out the power of now. But in terms of maybe not the concept, rather the fact of us passing through life, going through life, and at some point also passing over to the other side, or whatever you believe there to be once this show does not go on anymore. Time is all we have, right? You have a very limited amount of time with all people around you, really. And I think I've talked with you before about this idea that there is actually, you can even get those posters, which I got given for my birthday, for my 25th birthday by Kuba, funnily enough. Wonderful poster, and also really wake-up call in many ways, on which you can mark your weeks of life, and it sort of lays out how many weeks you have if you were to live up to 100, I think. And obviously, as you tick off the weeks in a given year, you see how much of the time has passed. And, considering I'm 27, soon to be 28, there is a quarter of that poster filled up already. And I will also link below to this episode, and I'll take a note now so I don't forget for you, the Kurzgesagt video on time. So there is this video from Kurzgesagt, which is the channel on YouTube that does sort of scientific and nice animation videos. There's also a reminder there that your time is very limited, and even more so when it comes to your loved ones. Because if you think about it, if I'm right now 27, and so I potentially have, if all goes to plan, around somewhere around 70 more 60 more years to go. The thing is, my time with my parents, for example, or with my grandparents even more so, is definitely a sort of a difference between their time and mine. And it's sort of in the middle somewhere. So, for example, if my parents are 60 and I'm 30, then there's probably around at most 30 years more that I may have, a chance to be with my parents, to spend time with them. And similarly, in terms of our growing up, I assume the majority of you, as my analytics of the podcast suggest, the majority of you are obviously of age. It makes sense. This podcast is not really too easy to digest in many ways. So my listener base is naturally more or less of my age or older. And the thing is, when you were growing up, or if you are still in the stage of maybe growing up, maybe you're not 18 yet, there is certainly a certain time in your life when you're growing up, when you are with your parents and when you are with your siblings almost 24/7, right? Apart from going to school, coming back, it's a normal thing to be together in those times in between. Now, as I mentioned to you before about my story, I left Poland to study in UK when I was 19. And so, since my brother is 9 years younger than me, by the time I was leaving to study abroad, I could potentially stay and then live from my parents' house for another 2-3 years as I study. You know, if I were to study in Warsaw, it would probably be cheaper and easier for me to just stay in the house, like many of my friends did. And that would give me those 3-4 additional years, you know, being present with my younger brother and my sister, for that matter, and my parents. But since I decided to move abroad, that was cut short. It was quite frankly one of the, especially about my brother. You know, this is what I talked about him, talked about with him recently. This was probably one of the hardest parts of this whole journey abroad. It was a very big thing for me to have a younger brother. I think that was, you know, first of all, I'm the eldest of us 3, so I assume there is a bit in my character traits and my attitude that has been formulated via the avenue of being the eldest. You know, there's plenty of research done on that. But especially having a younger brother that was young enough, old enough, in a way, I was young enough with him to still enjoy and be at home for quite a long time. And at the same time, I had a chance to sort of relive my childhood. It was a very big thing for me. And I feel deeply connected with Tomek. And in many ways, going abroad, leaving, I struggled with that notion that I'm leaving him as he is still young enough to want to spend time with me, because let us not forget, by the time your brother or sister or nephew or son or daughter will be 14, 15, they're probably unlikely to want to spend time with their siblings for quite some time. But at the time, for the next 2, 3, 4 years probably, he would like to spend time with me, and I would love to spend time with him. And I remember having a conversation with my mom at some point about this, where I actually did, you know, full on have a crying fit, considering that I'm doing something wrong, right? Like I'm leaving him behind in many ways. And at the time, obviously, my parents did what they could. They reassured me that, and it is fair from their perspective, and I think looking now at this, you know, I don't doubt it was a good choice, that there is no point in me waiting, because I'm not really truly waiting, right? If I am 19 and I should go uni and I don't, or I change my plans because of a younger brother and time with him, on a short term it might be a nice thing to do. On a long term, it's sort of putting me back. Obviously, I could study in Poland, but there were reasons to want to move abroad. And, you know, I mean, I don't regret doing that for sure. Although I do feel and regret some time in that space of time in my first few years of being abroad, when, without realizing it, without being aware, I actually did miss out, I think, on quite some time with my brother. And in particular, I'm, you know, sort of regretful, and I took a note here saying regrets as a lesson, because they truly do resonate with me as regrets still, which I'm still trying to let go of. And maybe in some way, me telling you this story is a catharsis of some sort, a certain kind of therapy session for me. I wouldn't be surprised if it was. In many ways, I think the podcast is a big therapeutic device for me in dealing with the world in general, and hoping to help another. The thing is, like, at the time I was smoking quite a bit of weed, which it did, looking back, it was obviously silly to do so in such quantities, and in general I'm aware it's a bad choice, period. But oh hey, we were all young and silly. The thing is, whenever I would be back, because I had such a strong connection with my friends from Poland, and I did also feel that I'm the one sort of missing out because I'm away, and there were quite a few occasions when I would abandon the time that I could potentially spend with my brother, whom I've not seen as long as my friends, to go and spend time with friends and just smoke and play video games, basically waste time, apart from the friendship part, which I think was at the time needed. And my brother responded to this part of my story recently, saying everything is as it should be. We wouldn't be here if we didn't do back there what we did. And I'm grateful for that, because in many ways that's what I'm hoping to instill in myself, and I truly do believe it to be true, that I am where I am because of all the choices, and so there is a reason for everything. We might not see it so just in the middle of it. The thing is, though, looking back, my main message in this story is that since your time with your loved ones is limited, be aware of how you spend the time you have with them, because this is the regret part. I don't really feel I regret the going away part. What I regret is when I was coming back, there were a few situations in particular which I still have ingrained in my brain, like vividly, which I shared with Tomek, and he was surprised because he doesn't remember. Fair enough, he was just a kid. When I did feel simply stupid or sort of a disappointment because of my choices, because of prioritizing a bunch of colleagues and just spending silly time as teenagers instead of spending quality time with my youngest brother, who I think looked up to me in many ways at the time, and so I recognized that as a mistake of my youth. And my message is basically be aware of that time and cherish it, because it's very limited. I can spend time with my brother now, and it's great. We went to a concert recently of his favorite rapper. I enjoyed the concert. I enjoyed his company, most importantly, and I think he appreciated it too. The thing is, we cannot turn back the clock, right? I won't go back to my brother being 11 and me being 20 to relive those moments when I wasn't there. And obviously he came out okay, everything's great, he's loving life as well, and he's a very smart and sorted out guy, awesome dude. But obviously, this is something I will just not be able to change, and time is of the essence, my friend. So that's the whole point of this shebang, I guess. Be aware of the time you have with your loved ones, and when you do have it with them, make sure that you cherish it and spend it well. And I've taken some notes here. First of all, like, stay off your phone. The one thing that I've recently talked with my dear friend Connor about is the struggle that one has with phones these days, and phones and screens in general, but phones in particular. There are so many situations, especially in public, where I observe family, sitting in a cafe and everyone has their own screen. Or I catch myself when I'm with my girlfriend or with my brother just glancing at my phone from time to time as if there's something there. And obviously it's just the addiction of the dopamine that spikes whenever we see on our phone something new, which is the whole point of the notifications. And the one thing you can do is obviously to turn off the notifications, but I would say whenever you actually have time with your loved ones, if you are at a dinner table or if you are with your girlfriend, boyfriend, wife, husband and sister, brother, whatever, son and stuff, just put the phone away, like truly put it away. If you need to put it in another room, do so, just so you can spend that time with them, because it means so much to the other person. And I am certain that you know how unpleasantly it feels when the other to whom you're talking suddenly glances at the phone and stops paying attention. You can tell that they stopped paying attention, and it's very upsetting. And apparently for children in particular, this is very bad. If you have small children, don't quote me on this, rather educate yourself, but I've listened to a bunch of conversations with some doctor who was talking that basically children mimic parents, right? So if they notice again and again, even as a toddler, that the parent is paying a lot of attention to the screen and not so much to them, over time they will associate the screen with the important aspect of life, which even just drives more this use of screens. And we know where that leads. There's so many tragic stories nowadays about youth, especially very young teenagers, getting themselves in quite a conundrum, or even just harming themselves or dying because of the internet rabbit hole and just constant connection rather than connection to the world. So yeah, I would just say put the phone away. Like that's a message to me as well. Don't get me wrong. Like when I listen to this episode again in some time, I'll remember to put my phone away. Now, the one thing that is a bit contentious maybe that I wanted to share here is something that also stems from the same thought pattern I've observed in myself. So I think it's been like 3 or 4 years now. I don't know, it doesn't matter. Putting a number on this is irrelevant. That I've been living a bit more consciously, and I truly do believe that in many ways my life has become better because of it. And the one thing I know for a fact, that I'm a very sociable person. I love to have people around. I'm easily connected with others. And so I'm also, in the past especially, I could also be named somewhat of a social butterfly or whatever you want to call them. Like, I had friends all around the campus, no matter their, interests and whatever. The thing is, though, there is a certain limit to your time, as we've discussed. And so there's also a certain limit to the amount of friends and close friends, true friends in particular, that you can keep. And I think as we grow, we also recognize over time what kind of people, come closer to us because of where we're heading, and what types of people or who from among our friends from the past or whatever might no longer be relevant, so to speak, to our journey. It sort of reminds me of this image of literally just walking down a path, and as long as you're heading in the same direction that someone else is heading, and you seem to have similar ideas and morals and wants and needs, they might walk with you, and it's very pleasurable if they do, when they do it. But over time, our roads might diverge. And the way I perceive if you do cling to your friendships from the past, as I think I did in many ways, looking back, you might find yourself going down a path that is not yours. Or worse even, you might find yourself not going down any path. And so in a way you're going backwards because you're in a very self-inflicted, troubling, I would say, way. You stall your progress, your natural evolve-like progress in life by trying to accommodate maybe to people and ideas that are no longer yours. And so, like, you know, an easy example to give is probably if you are at a stage in your life when you no longer do want to party so much. Maybe you've stopped drinking, or, you know, you've stopped participating in like a full-blown hedonistic pleasure party-like activities. Your friends who do indulge in that still might become over time slightly irrelevant, and it might feel sad, and in some ways I guess it is, but also in some ways it doesn't have to be, because ultimately we are, you know, I'm not saying this to make you break up your friendships or whatever. I'm certainly not doing that with mine, but just to make you maybe aware of this thing that I had been thinking about recently since I stopped drinking alcohol, for example, that there are certain situations in which I'm no longer a relevant, cool, you know, addition, simply because the activity of the place is drinking. For example, a pub. Like, I can still go to a pub from time to time with friends just to meet and chat, but I'd much rather maybe go for a walk and chat than be in the pub, or go to a restaurant than be in a pub. So in this way, my message about this point of cherishing the time you have and the limitless not so limitless time that you have left with your loved ones and your friends, I would urge you to also be aware of who you're committing that time to. And I think we've already discussed that on a podcast before as well, that some activities might not be for you. Some friends might no longer be for you. Some things that you've done in the past that worked, but then they started to sort of maybe not work so great anymore. Maybe they're no longer for you. You know, this might be a sad, in a way it is sad. I do feel sad about it, but at the same time, I've been thinking about it recently a lot, and I think I'm making a good choice. Is I used to have a very, I would say, close-knit and pleasant group of friends back home. Back home meaning my home before home in UK. But years have passed, and even though myself, I did not fall out with any of them, there has been some troubles in the group, among the group, let's say, because they live together in the same city and I don't. So I don't, I did not have a chance to enjoy, quote unquote, all the drama that might have happened there. And last year I've had a very unpleasant experience of trying to basically arrange a Christmas party for a group of friends that basically, it turns out, is no longer a group of friends. And I also got accused of just trying to stir the pot, as if I knew that people are no longer friendly. And, long story short, what I assumed to be a yearly good deed to do, because I've been organizing these Christmas parties for us as a group for quite a few years. I think maybe for 6 or 7 years, I'm not sure. Suddenly, it was not only not wished for, it was almost like a nuisance. And that was, initially I was quite perplexed, in the end, I did organize it. It just turned out to be a very different group in many ways. It changed from that particular group of friends into whoever is friendly with Wojtek and wants to go for dinner and doesn't have drama among themselves, kind of a dinner. And I was thinking whether I should organize one this year. And I mean, I'm pretty sure my decision is a no. Mostly because I don't have the time and the capacity for the drama, because my life is full as it is with my new duties of a new job and many other things I do. But, the point of a story here is, in many ways, sometimes you have to also, I think, kind of let go and allow the things to run their course. And maybe, even though I would like to have that dinner with friends, that Christmas party we've had for so long, my strategy will be different this year. So what I've decided to do is, instead of organizing in advance a big, complicated thing, what I'll do is I'll probably message a few people separately and ask whether they would like to do something like this. And instead of being the official organizer and trying to make people happy, I'll be more informally inviting those few that I do believe would like to spend time with me, if I am not wrong, to spend time with me in that way. So yeah, just cherish the time you have with your loved ones, and also be aware of who your loved ones should be. Maybe that's maybe a good point to finish with. Now, the second topic I'd like to talk about is that of the new year coming up and Christmas. And I know it's a bit early, although according to all the commercial shops, all the retail industry out there, it's not too early. It was not too early a month ago, and it was certainly not too early 20 minutes past midnight after Halloween. I feel like every year it just becomes quicker, maybe in a few years' time we'll have Christmas products being advertised in a shop 2 days after Easter. Who knows? Or maybe not after Easter, maybe after Thanksgiving to begin with. But the thought here that I had for you, something that I wanted to share with you briefly, is something we've talked about when we've discussed the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I'll also put the link below to that episode if you'd like to listen to it. But there was one rule in particular that I also remember sort of elaborating upon, which basically said, begin with the end in mind. And I don't think it's too early to start thinking of, first of all, how you would like your Christmas time to be, and also how you would like to approach figuring out how you would like New Year's to happen for you, the next year, 2025, how you would like it to be. And so, just 2 quotes to make your brain moving and allow me a little space to make my thoughts connect is, one quote says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And the second one, from our GOAT of investors, Ray Dalio, if you do not worry, you have to worry. If you worry, you don't have to worry. Now, I know it might be a bit surprising to talk about Christmas so early. I usually have this kind of New Year's resolutions or New Year's episode later on in the year. As I said, it's mostly because I was thinking what kind of things would be useful for you right now to consider already, while also allowing me the space to finish the rebranding process. But I genuinely do think it's something you might want to consider now. So the one thing that I've noticed with me is, even though I do my budget and I figure out my expenses regularly for 2 or 3 years now, Christmas seems to always surprise me with the expenses incurred in that period. And it might be a mixture of generosity and unpreparedness. I would like to really take the generosity part out of it. I think that's just my ego trying to excuse itself from being ignorant and unprepared. There is this funny quote from Jim Rohn that winter comes every year with regularity. So you should not be surprised that after December finishes, January starts, at least according to our calendar. And similarly, you should not be surprised by now that in less than 2 months you'll be, spending time and money on Christmassy-like events. And obviously these might be quite cost-incurring and probably not cost-efficient time for the majority of us, which is also a great privilege. And I would like you to reflect on that, just how privileged you are to even begin to enjoy all the crazy things you'll probably go into over Christmas time, from Christmas markets to Christmas gifts to all the food you're gonna consume and all the sweets, most importantly. Now, the point of the money planning is not really to restrict us, as we've discussed before again and again. Rather, maybe this is a reminder for you to consider that since it is coming up soon, you have enough time to anticipate and plan for it, but most importantly, you also have time to consider what's most important for you. So this is something we've discussed with my girlfriend a while back, that since we want to travel more than we do, and traveling costs money, maybe we will cut down at least a little bit on the priciness of gifts that we give one another for birthdays or Christmas, and instead we'll maybe contribute to our mutual holiday fund or stuff like that. The point I'm trying to make here is figure out what's important for you, right? You don't have to be spending loads to express your love for your loved ones. There are other ways to do so. And I think the most important way to do so is just by spending quality time with them, which is the point we've discussed just a moment ago. Now, regardless of the money, the thing that I would like you to think about is this beginning with the end in mind, thinking, what would you like to get out of this time with family and friends, and both Christmas time and New Year's Eve. If you are privileged like myself to be able to go home and enjoy the time off work with family and friends, then consider what would that be for you, and make a conscious intention, some sort of a plan, maybe in a way a sketch of a plan of how you will ensure that this time of family spending, which, as we've discussed earlier, is very limited. One note to make here is, if you are 27, 28, probably your real time you will have to spend with your parents, if you've already moved out of the house, is probably around 2 to 4 weeks a year, which means what? Something like 20 months? No, that's way too many. Like, it's like a year worth of time you have left with your parents, considering they might live till they're like, 90 or something. It's not much, and you do the math. I might have spun this slightly too much. I've not done my maths for this. But the point is, if out of every year you spend 2 weeks, or let's say even the 4 weeks, which I think is quite generous, but let us say that 4 weeks because you live nearby to your parents, that's, even if that would not be too much of a time overall, and that time is very precious, right? You spend much more time in the year probably just having your work and your everyday hassles going on than you actually do spending it with your parents or with your siblings. And so make sure that you spend it well. And in terms of the Christmas time, like how you spend it and when and where you spend it is very important. And I just wanted, to sort of to for you to recognize that. And the thing in particular about New Year's is, it's all great, and we've discussed it before on the episode about New Year's resolution and sort of planning your year ahead. It's great to plan for next year, and it's great to make the resolutions, and it's great to have an intention in place. And I encourage you to do all of that. The thing is, though, I think we underestimate the power of looking back at your year, even just for a moment, to appreciate what you've done or what you've experienced. And if it was hard or difficult or upsetting, then recognize that you made it through, and how much more of a person you are this year, rolling up the next year, because of these experiences. And something that really has helped me over the years is, having this little calendar. I definitely mentioned it on the podcast a couple of times. I'll put the link below as well. And if you'd like, you can get yourself one of those from Amazon. If you'd like, you can get yourself one of those that I actually created for myself. And it's also on Amazon. The thing is with those notes that basically, because I am able to plan out my weeks, months, days, I can also look back on them. And at the end of every month, I have a chance, and at the end of every year, I have a chance to review which goals I succeeded in, which I may be fallen short of, and also what the lessons and experiences I had. And I think in particular, if there is one thing we do not do enough, is look back at our maybe mistakes, but also successes, and trying to deduce the clues that they give us, right? So if I consecutively have an experience that, even though every year I put myself this, resolution of going to the gym every week, and then by March I drop out, and then in December I make that resolution again, it's good to remind yourself that you dropped out twice already from this resolution before, because maybe that's an indicator that you're doing something wrong. And maybe you should at least adjust your attitude and approach. You should not just assume that doing it the same this year will bring a different result. I think Einstein said that doing things the same way and expecting a different result is sort of like a madness or something. I really think he was on point, right? Resolutions are great, guys, but just make sure that you know what you've done in the past year, what worked and what didn't, and ideally get yourself some sort of a tool, whether it's on Google Calendar, whether it's a paper version like I have myself. I really like the paper versions. They're more useful for me, but it might be different for you. Overall, just figure out a system for yourself that you can track your record in the same way that a company could track its record in its performance over time. If you want to be successful in whatever you're doing, there are clues in success from other areas, right? Like if you know that professional athletes are tracking their best performances and are doing those minor adjustments to make sure that the best performances are even better next time round, why aren't you doing that? Why do you you might even put this is the funny joke that many people point to, that we often put more effort into planning our week holidays at the seaside than we do at planning our life. And fair enough, I'm not saying that you can plan your life, but you can certainly sketch it. You can certainly outline where you're trying to get, and coming back to the thought from earlier, so you know on which path you should be, right? I mean, I have plans, I have dreams, I have ideas, I have sketches of what's to occur. I know that it might not exactly happen as it will. It certainly won't. But at least I know what's important for me, and it allows me to iterate and know where I'm off course or if I'm on course. Otherwise, you're kind of stumbling in the dark, aren't you? So yeah, in the same way, I would urge you to consider this for your New Year resolutions, New Year plans, reviewing what happened in this year, and also planning, and worrying so you don't have to worry. I think what Ray Dalio said there is really, really crucial, that in many ways, if you anticipate what's to come, it will likely not happen because you will be prepared. And that is the great power in anticipating. Now, finally, and pardon little knocks on the wall if you hear them. Quite a weird time to be doing refurbishment or whatever, but fair enough. Finally, I would like to share with you just a few things about the plans coming up. So, as I mentioned earlier, rebranding is coming. You can expect the episode about it and the new podcast logo and everything in the coming weeks. I don't know how long it's gonna take, and I'll be honest with you. The friend of mine who's doing it for me has been back and forth with me about some choices we've made, and we're not yet there. So I don't want to be saying like, oh yeah, it's gonna be next week, and then disappoint you next week. But it's coming, and it will certainly come before Christmas. That's a promise I can make. And then in terms of the series that I'm planning to do before the year comes to a close, I've decided that I'll do a shorter, probably 4 or 5 episodes series, which will be about books that talk about topics and ideas that might feel or sound or be perceived by some as slightly controversial or outlandish. And I would not be myself if I did not share with you these books and these ideas that resonated with me. And remember, whatever I will be sharing are my thoughts based on those books, and it's not like I'm going to be talking about the whole book, right? As per usual, there's going to be some ideas that stuck with me, so I'll share them, and some ideas that you might just need to read the book yourself to uncover. But these are the few books that made a great impression on me over the past year, and I was hesitant to even mention them to begin with all the, I think, cancel culture, whatever that is. That's, in many ways, I'm thinking about this and I'm thinking like, who cares? No one would bother with canceling a podcast of a guy that is just chatting in a room. I'm not that much of a public figure to begin with, but fair play. Some things, some topics people don't like to talk about, and there is apparently now an avenue of making other people miserable and their lives difficult by canceling them, as they call it. So I was thinking whether or not I should share those books with you. The thing is, though, sharing the books themselves and talking about topics that I feel resonate with me and might be useful for you is in no way controversial. This is the point of our episodes, right? I read a book, I find some things useful and relevant, I think these things might be for you, and so I offer them to you, and you decide whether or not this is something relevant and useful and entertaining, or maybe not. And in a similar way, I think these books and the ideas in them, as controversial as they might sound, can be treated in the same way. And obviously, there's not going to be anything that would be offensive to anyone, but there are topics that might be just difficult to swallow. And if you do recognize them as true, then that poses quite a bit of questions, quite a number of questions in regards to the way the world runs and the way things are. And that will be for you to decide. So the coming books that I will discuss are these few. The Bitcoin Standard, which will basically talk about cryptocurrency and its potential for our future. The Real Anthony Fauci, which is basically a book about big pharma and its impact on the world, particularly United States. But since we're all interconnected, I think it's relevant to us all. Many Lives, Many Masters, which is this book written by Dr. Brian Weiss about basically a patient of his that recalled her, I think, 37 different lives, previous lives. And I think this is not really that controversial in a sense, but it's definitely quite outlandish of an idea. And for many of you, it might be something that you find weird, but I found it quite interesting. I thought, why not? Let's share it. Creature from Jekyll Island, which is basically a very, very hefty and difficult book about the fractional banking system and the system of monetary policies and finance that we have in our modern world with all its flaws. And I think this might be one of the most troublesome books I've encountered over the past year. And then I think the last one we might discuss, but I will come back to you on that, is Nexus by Yuval Noah Harari, which is basically surrounding the AI, its potential, the problem with networks, and the problem, basically the trouble that humanity might have found itself in with all the new technology emerging. And so these 5, maybe more, you can expect in the coming weeks. I'll slowly but surely record them. I'll probably put them up in like 2 weeks' time from now, and we'll go for them. And I hope that they will be yet again an opening for a discussion or an invitation for you, as per usual, to read and to educate yourself and to think things through in your own head. Because the worst we can do is allow other people to think for us and just gobble up that garbage that they give us. If you want to be independent, the first independence you should have is independence of thought. So I would just invite you, my dear listener, to not listen to me, rather consider the ideas that I give you and make your own conclusion and decide whether or not it's something that you recognize and relate to. That said, I think it's fair to draw a close. I know I waffled for quite some time, but it was very pleasurable, and I appreciate your patience, and also thank you for listening to my story. My invitation for this week is just that. I'm looking for ideas of books and topics that I should explore in the next year. And I'm already writing down some notes, but I could use your help. And the invitation is a sort of a selfish one, but it also isn't, because I would invite you to consider what topics, ideas, or concepts, thoughts you are interested in, and what would you like to learn more about. And by reflecting on that, if you find that there is a certain book or a certain idea or a certain whatever that sparks your mind's eye that you'd like to explore, share it with me, please. either comment below on this episode, maybe send me a direct message on one of the social media platforms, maybe follow the link below and just send me an email there saying, this is the idea, this is the book, let's go. I will review them. I will see whether these books and ideas I can get a hold of and consider. And I'd love for this participation activity to become just that. Because first of all, I will be able to learn a bit more about you as a listener. And most importantly, I will be able to learn more about topics that I might not have considered yet. And I trust that since you are listening and since you want to reach out, you resonate with me on a level that will benefit the both of us and everyone else who gets to listen to the episode. So yeah, I just thought, why not? If you'd like, please let me know, have a think, and most importantly, have a think for yourself. If there is something you'd like to learn more of, why don't you just do it? Other than that, as always, have a wonderful, wonderful week. Stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.